My father was a great reader, loved history books, loved history from my earliest memories, and my dad reading books to me when I went to bed at night. Particularly what sticks in my mind is Charles Dickens's Child, History of England, which first got me interested in history. And my father actually, the last 12 months of writing the book, 2007, 2008, my father was dying of prostate cancer and died just shortly before I submitted the manuscript. So it seemed appropriate to honor his memory by dedicating a book to him. Ironically, I think it's the only thing I've ever written that he would actually have been interested in reading. So the shame is that he wasn't around to see the final product, but he's certainly the inspiration behind it. I think history is storytelling. The best history is the telling of different kinds of stories, economic, political, military. So there is a definite connection between the art of history and the art of storytelling in general. The difference, I think, for a historian is that the stories that we tell are to an extent regulated by events that actually took place, by actions that actually happened in real time and space history. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the line between where fact and fiction end and begin is somewhat blurred, but there is a definite difference, for example, between, say, Charles Dickens's Charles History of England and his book Barnaby Rudge. Barnaby Rudge is rooted in the riots that took place in England in the 18th century, but it's a work of fiction in a way that the Child's History of England is rooted much more closely in events and personalities that happened in the past. I think history is a critical discipline when it's taught well, that it allows you to ask the how and the why questions, not just the when and the what, but the how and the why. And the other aspect is if it's taught well, you develop skills of critical analysis that can then be applied to society, politics, and culture today.
You mentioned that, the politics. Is there a connection between the release of this book and your other recent work, Republic Rap?
I guess if there is a connection, there wasn't a self-conscious connection other than they were both...
There were other circumstances
I signed the
involved
contracts around about the same time, I seem to remember. I think if there is a connection, it's that in both books I'm attempting to look at context. I'm attempting to set narrow ideas, actions, and individuals within the broader sweep of history. So I would hope that Republic Rap represents a consistent application of the kinds of things I try to articulate in this book. Yeah. And for example, the first chapter of Republic Rap is an analysis of the history of the left. It seems to me that in order to understand why the left holds certain positions it does, you need to go back over the last 50 or 100 years of the history of left-wing thinking to see where the shifts take place. And that's the kind of thing that I'm advocating for in general in Histories and Fallacies. Historiography is, if you like, it's the history of history. Even historical books, historical narratives, they are historical actions themselves. They're done by a particular person at a particular point in time. So in order to understand, for example, take my book on John Owen, to set that in context, well, it's, I would say, quite clearly to somebody who knows the subject of 17th century studies, a book written in the wake of the kind of stuff that Richard Muller was doing for the decade prior to me writing that. And I'm building on the insights and the ideas that he has. And that applies in all variations of the historical discipline. Every historian is not only standing on the shoulders of giants in terms of the material that he or she is looking at, but also standing on the shoulders of giants in terms of the methods that they're applying to that material.